Did you know that the World Economic Forum has estimated that the cost of corruption is about $2.6 trillion a year worldwide? Ah, corruption. The word has almost become synonymous with government. You only need to look at Russia, Somalia, and Zimbabwe to see the cost of corruption. But what about our city governments in the US? You don't have to travel to North Korea to see how deeply corrupt all governments can be. Only 2% of Americans say that they trust the government to do what's right all or most of the time. In this list, we'll look at our bigger cities and some of the government agencies that are notoriously corrupt. Number 8 is New Orleans, Louisiana. From the debacle during Hurricane Katrina in 2005 to the recent mayoral scandals, New Orleans lands its spot as number 8 on this list. New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell has faced her share of corruption scandals. In 2022, this included an unusually close relationship with her bodyguard and huge payouts to her stylist. She was accused of buying first-class flights, not paying rent on luxury apartments, and spending a suspicious amount of time with her bodyguard. All of this at the taxpayer's expense. When it comes to money fraud and overspending, it's not just the mayor. The police force has been the target of financial scandals as well. What initially appeared to be a simple salary data search eventually led to a months-long undercover sting operation, and in 2021 ended with police suspensions, a retirement, and further investigation by the FBI. A sting operation feels more like something from Criminal Minds or CSI, but unfortunately it was against the very people that are trying to keep law and order. Number 7 is Detroit, Michigan. The state of the city itself is enough to suspect that something is amiss. Some of the more recent scandals include City Councilman Andre Spivey accepting over $35,000 in bribes to influence city business. Former Detroit Councilman Gabe Leland was sentenced to 2.5 years probation for felony misconduct in office. He accepted $7,500 in campaign contributions. Then there's the infamous corrupt quartet consisting of Charles Pugh, Monica Conyers, Lonnie Bates, and Kay Everett. The fallen foursome has been charged with multiple felonies. Locals could hardly forget City Councilwoman Monica Conyers, who pleaded guilty in 2009 to using her position on the city council to demand money from businessmen seeking city contracts or pension deals. Her indictment said she told her partner in crime, "You'd better get my loot, that's all I know." Well, it doesn't get much better than that. Number 6 is Miami, Florida. Where do we even begin? Their own mayor, Danielle Lavina Cava, had no choice when confronted by reporters to admit that there is corruption in the city. "We're on it," she said. What was the accusation? On Wednesday, March 8th of 2023, a Miami-Dade undercover narcotics detective was shot. He was investigating a huge drug operation being smuggled into county jails with help from the very officers that are supposed to be stopping this. A 39-year-old health services worker was arrested earlier this year after an investigation led police to believe she was planning to smuggle contraband, including marijuana, into a detention center. Sadly, this is not a new problem either. Back in the 1980s, a whopping 10% of the entire Miami Police Department was suspended or fired after a drug-related scandal. It doesn't sound like things have gotten a whole lot better. Number 5 is Flint, Michigan. This might seem like a cheat, given that we already did Detroit, but we would be remiss to ignore the elephant in the room, or rather, the elephant in the water. More specifically, the lead in the water. Though the Flint water crisis began in 2014, it wasn't until 2021 when the former governor Rick Snyder, a former Flint Public Works director, and 7 others were charged with neglect of duty in the scandal. The water crisis was probably one of the biggest scandals in recent history involving an American city. The Flint water issue was a public health crisis that started in 2014 after the drinking water for the city was contaminated with lead and possibly Legionella, a bacteria that causes severe illness. After financial issues caused the city to change its water source, residents began to complain about the taste and the smell. Officials failed to do what was necessary to maintain clean water, which resulted in lead from aging pipes seeping into the water supply, exposing around 100,000 residents to dangerous lead levels. As of 2023, though the water has been deemed clean, many residents of Flint still have a complex relationship with the water, and thus this keeps Flint as number 5 on this list. Number 4 is Los Angeles, California. With a city that can't seem to get itself together or solve any of its problems, then spoiler alert, the city is being rocked by yet another scandal. And you need to look no further than City Hall. Some recent scandals include accusations of racism as a video surfaced exposing 3 Latino council members trying to increase their own power at the expense of black voters. Needless to say that these leaked tapes shook the public's trust in the council. In June of 2023, prosecutors charged Councilmember Curran Price Jr., who has served for 10 years, with embezzlement and perjury. He's the 3rd city council member to be charged with a felony in recent years. Even when looking beyond criminal civil officials, the city is plagued with problems that reek of corruption. There is a homeless crisis, rises in crime, mishandling of the pandemic, public office vacancies, and deplorable road conditions. The city's hurdles sprawl as far as the LA metro area. It may come as no surprise. There is a fine line between a politician and a Hollywood actor, or maybe there's no line at all between the two. Number 4 is New York City, New York. From accusations of the mafia being in bed with the mayor, to the notion that Mayor de Blasio caused mass nursing home deaths during the pandemic, New York City practically takes pride in its corruption. The most recent scandal does involve the handling of COVID, excessive lockdowns, unscientific vaccine mandates, and the infamous nursing home deaths barely scratch the surface. The nursing home scandal was fueled by Governor Cuomo understating the deaths by 83%. U.S. Attorney Seth Ducharme of the Eastern District of New York, as well as the FBI, have launched an investigation into New York State's handling of nursing home deaths. The corruption scandals extended across different entities, including the famed NYPD. In 2019, taxpayers funded $68,688,423 in misconduct lawsuits, a 76% increase from 2018. This includes a staggering $10 million paid out to 2 exonerated individuals who had been falsely convicted and imprisoned. Probably one of the city's biggest scandals involved the powerful teaching unions and the infamous rubber rooms. Teachers who should be fired but can't because of the unions are sent to rubber rooms. They either report to a designated room or stay at home and get paid. That's right. Teachers that should be but can't be fired get paid a 6-figure salary to take naps. This has cost the taxpayer millions of dollars per year. It's one of the more infuriating and persistent examples of corruption. What does a $37,000 Rolex watch, a $40,000 John Deere tractor, a personalized safari trip in China, and a forgiven home loan worth $30,000 have in common? They all bring us to number 3 on this list: San Francisco, California. All of those items were just some of the many gifts and bribes that federal prosecutors say San Francisco officials received from city contractors and business people who wanted to influence them for their own interests. The city is a complete dystopia, and how could the government not be to blame when City Hall is full of corruption? While the corruption goes back decades, the most recent lineup of scandals seems to have begun in 2020, when Mohamed Nuru, then the director of the San Francisco Department of Public Works, was hit with a slew of federal corruption charges and was accused of lying to the FBI. These crimes could hold a potential prison sentence of up to 25 years, but he was just the first to fall in a long line of dominoes. Over the past 3 years, multiple heads of government had been kicked out of office on corruption charges. The charges range from the upper tiers of government down to building inspectors. Number 2 is Chicago, a three-peat city of corruption. Chicago was voted the most corrupt city in the US for 3 years in a row. Why then is it only number 2 on this list? Well, it will be very obvious when you see who we deemed as number 1. In 2019 alone, there were 26 corruption convictions. These convictions range from extortion to sexual harassment. Michael Madigan is the former Speaker of the Illinois House of Representatives. He was the longest-serving leader of any state or federal legislative body in the history of the United States. Sounds like a solid official, doesn't he? Well, he is set to stand trial on April 1st, 2024, facing 23 counts alleging that he participated in and benefited from a variety of corruption schemes. Corruption goes beyond any one person. One of Madigan's staffers, Elena Hampton, filed a lawsuit against the entire Democratic Party of Illinois, the Democratic majority, the 13th Ward, Democratic Organization, and friends of Michael J. Madigan, according to a report. She accused Kevin Quinn, a Madigan aide, of sending her a barrage of unwanted messages and phone calls in pursuit of a romantic and sexual relationship. Yikes. And finally, number 1 is Washington, D.C., the swamp, the epicenter of all corruption, the mothership of mayhem, the headquarters of heresy. All you have to do is turn on the news to find a new scandal coming out of D.C. From Donald Trump's 8 million indictments, Hillary's lost emails, and Hunter Biden's laptop, the nation's capital is a playground of recklessness. I would say we'll all do our best to not be political, but that's probably impossible given the nature of the topic. No matter what you think about Trump or Biden, it's hard to ignore the scandals currently plaguing both presidents. Trump is currently facing 91 somewhat charges. There's January 6th, the Georgia election interference, classified documents, and the hush money indictment. Then, shifting over to our sitting president, there is the perpetual scandal involving his son, and as more information comes out, it seems Joe Biden is intertwined within the corruption. It all started with Hunter's laptop, which was abandoned in a computer store in Delaware. The rest was history. Whether you agree with Trump or not, the swamp certainly needs to be drained. Are you aware of just how big the homeless crisis in America is? Click this image to learn more about homelessness in America.